Hi, beautiful. Let's read today in chapter 15, the Holy Instance, section 7, paragraph 4. We said before that the ego attempts to maintain and increase guilt. I'll pause here and say, and we know from our study in A Course in Miracles that this is in direct opposition to God, who maintains our innocence, our inherent innocence, but in such a way that you do not recognize what it would do to you. For it is the ego's fundamental doctrine that what you do to others, you have escaped. Wow, I'll pause here and say, and nothing can be further from the truth. The ego wishes no one well. I'll pause here and say, including ourselves. Yet its survival depends on your belief that you are exempt from its evil intentions. It counsels, therefore, that if you are host to it, it will enable you to direct its anger outward, thus protecting you. Oh, gosh. Okay, pause. What a lie. What a lie. When have we ever projected our anger and our rage and our grief onto someone else and actually felt better for it? Maybe temporarily because we blew off some steam, but wow, the damage that does. The damage that does to our own personal happiness and our relationships never goes well. Thus protecting you. And thus it embarks on an endless, unrewarding chain of special relationships forged out of anger and dedicated to but one insane belief that the more anger you invest outside yourself, the safer you become. Wow. It is this chain that binds the Son of God to guilt, and it is this chain the Holy Spirit would remove from his holy mind. For the chain of savagery belongs not around the chosen host of God, who cannot make himself host to the ego. In the name of his release and in the name of him who would release him, let us look more closely at the relationships the ego contrives and let the Holy Spirit judge them truly. For it is certain that if you will look at them, you will offer them gladly to him. What he can make of them, you do not know, but you will become willing to find out if you are willing first to perceive what you have made of them. In one way or another, every relationship the ego makes is based on the idea that by sacrificing itself, it becomes bigger. The sacrifice, which it regards as purification, is actually the root of its bitter resentment, for it would prefer to attack directly and avoid delaying what it really wants. Yet the ego acknowledges reality as it sees it and recognizes that no one could interpret direct attack as love. Yet to make guilty is direct attack, although it does not seem to be. For the guilty expect attack, and having asked for it, they are attracted to it. In such insane relationships, the attraction of what you do not want seems to be much stronger than the attraction of what you do want. For each one thinks that he has sacrificed something to the other and hates him for it. Wow, what a sad, petty little thought system that brings such misery. Yet this is what he thinks he wants. He is not in love with the other at all. He merely believes he is in love with sacrifice. And for this sacrifice, I'm going to pause here and say, just the mean, petty, small way that the ego treats other people. I mean, I can think of 100 little examples in my own life throughout the different relationships I've had, different conflicts I've had, and see how the ego just, when we are ego identified and when we are hostage to ego, the stupid things we will say and do that cause ourselves and others pain, it would be laughable if it wasn't so sad and didn't create so much misery on a small scale and wars on a large scale. He merely believes he is in love with sacrifice, and for this sacrifice which he demands of himself, he demands of the other accept the guilt and sacrifice himself as well. Misery loves company. If I'm not happy, you can't be happy. That's part of the ego scriptures right there. Forgiveness becomes impossible, for the ego believes that to forgive another is to lose him. Oh, it's so sad. It is only by attack without forgiveness that the ego can ensure the guilt that holds all its relationships together. Yet they only seem to be together. For relationships to the ego mean only that bodies are together. It is always this that the ego demands, and it does not object where the mind goes or what it thinks, for this is unimportant. As long as the body is there to receive its sacrifice, it is content. We know that true love liberates. True love sets others free because we don't have to hold anyone captive. If you truly love someone and they truly love you, they're not going anywhere. But look at the crazy ways the ego tries to force other people to perform their role that the ego has assigned them. As long as the body is there to receive its sacrifice, it is content. To the ego, the mind is private and only the body can be shared. Ideas are basically of no concern except as they bring the body of another closer or farther. And it is in these terms that it evaluates ideas as good or bad. What makes another guilty and holds him through guilt is good. What releases him from guilt is bad, because he would no longer believe that bodies communicate, and so he would be gone. Suffering and sacrifice are the gifts with which the ego would bless all unions. Ooh. And those who are united at its altar accept suffering and sacrifice as the price of union. In their angry alliances born of the fear of loneliness and yet dedicated to the continuance of loneliness, each seeks relief from guilt by increasing it in the other. I'll pause here and say, making other people wrong. That's the ego's favorite pastime. Everybody's wrong, and if they would only do what I say, or if they were only more like me, then everyone would be happy. And yet there could be, that's the literal definition of being egoic. to try and make everyone in your own image, in the small self's image, instead of recognizing the truth that everyone is already made in the image of God, perfect, whole, and complete. For each believes that this decreases guilt in him. The other seems always to be attacking and wounding him, perhaps in little ways, perhaps unconsciously, yet never without demand of sacrifice. The fury of those joined at the ego's altar far exceeds your awareness of it, for what the ego really wants, you do not realize. Whenever you are angry, you can be sure that you have formed a special relationship which the ego has blessed, for anger is its blessing. Anger takes many forms, but it cannot long deceive those who will learn that love brings no guilt at all, and what brings guilt cannot be love and must be anger. All anger is nothing more than an attempt to make someone feel guilty, and this attempt is the only basis the ego accepts for special relationships. Wow, so beautiful. Guilt is the only need the ego has, and as long as you identify with it, guilt will remain attractive to you. Yet remember this, to be with a body is not communication, and if you think it is, you will feel guilty about communication and will be afraid to hear the Holy Spirit, recognizing in his voice your own need to communicate. So I'm going to pause here and go back a little bit, and it says, all anger is nothing more than an attempt to make someone feel guilty, and this attempt is the only basis the ego accepts for special relationships. So something that's come up for me is, well, anger, we feel angry when someone has crossed us. So that's true on a certain level. That's true, certainly if we are operating from the small self. If you're operating from your true self, you recognize that everything anyone ever says or does is either saying, I love you, or crying out for love. And so from that perspective, anger doesn't make sense. Would you condemn someone in an insane asylum for being insane, or would you just pity them? I don't know about you, but if I knew someone was mentally unwell and trapped in a nightmare and in a delusion, I would do my best to help them recover, because that's just sad. So from a higher perspective, stepping into our greatness, saying goodbye to our littleness, stepping into our greatness, we're able to look at others as calling out for help. Now, we may know in our hearts that we are not the right person at the right place or time to help this person, but we wouldn't be angry with them. This doesn't mean that we don't use our wise discernment. The Holy Spirit lets us know what to say, when to say it, what to do, when to do it. And sometimes the guidance is to stay away. There was a time where I came home from my house and I saw a man rummaging through my garbage. And I thought, maybe he's looking for food. He must be hungry. I'm going to go over there and help him. Because that's how I am. I'm a helpful person. I was going to go offer him some food. I was going to bring him inside my house. So I started walking up to him, and Spirit said so clearly, stop. And I was like, okay. And I was like, but he needs my help. And Spirit said, turn around, go inside your house, and lock the door. And so I followed that guidance. I went inside, I locked the door, and then I looked at the window, and this man turned around, and he was like clearly having some type of hallucination. He was gnashing his teeth. He was enraged. His eyes were wide, and he was screaming at some imaginary person. I'm not going to diagnose the mental illness he was suffering from, or perhaps he, had taken some type of substance. I don't know. But I saw in that moment, wow, it would have been dangerous to have gone up and startled him. I could have gotten hurt. I was being protected. None of this in A Course in Miracles is intended to tell you to not listen to Spirit and to not protect your biosuit. You're not a punching bag. You're not an emotional punching bag. You're not a physical punching bag. What it is saying is that when you feel angry at someone because they're delusional, you're missing the point. It's okay to walk away from someone who's having a nightmare and they're not in a state to receive your love or your help. But it doesn't make sense for you to hate them or be angry at them for being sick. Physician, heal thyself. The Holy Spirit cannot teach through fear. And how can he communicate with you while you believe that to communicate is to make yourself alone? It is clearly insane to believe that by communicating you will be abandoned. And yet many do believe it. For they think their minds must be kept private or they will lose them. But if their bodies are together, their minds remain their own. The union of bodies thus becomes the way in which they would keep minds apart. For bodies cannot forgive. They can only do as the mind directs. The illusion of the autonomy of the body and its ability to overcome loneliness is but the working of the ego's plan to establish its own autonomy. As long as you believe that to be with a body is companionship, you will be compelled to attempt to keep your brother in his body, held there by guilt, and you will see safety in guilt and danger in communication. For the ego will always teach that loneliness is solved by guilt and that communication is the cause of loneliness. And despite the evident insanity of this lesson, many have learned it. Forgiveness lies in communication as surely as damnation lies in guilt. It is the Holy Spirit's teaching function to instruct those who believe communication to be damnation, that communication is salvation, and he will do so for the power of God in him and you is joined in a real relationship so holy and so strong that it can overcome even this without fear. It is through the holy instant that what seems impossible is accomplished, making it evident that it is not impossible. In the holy instant, guilt holds no attraction since communication has been restored. So when A Course in Miracles talks about communication, it's talking about all minds are joined. We can't lie to each other even if we want to. Now we can lie to each other's egos because they are separate. They're not even real. But you cannot lie to God's Son. No one can lie to your true self. We learned in a previous lesson that no one can withhold truth from you but yourself. And when we accept this, we recognize that keeping things secret and harboring secret resentments and secretly hating someone and being angry at them, it's not secret at all. People feel that. They know that on some level, that you feel that way about them. There is complete forgiveness here, for there is no desire to exclude anyone from your completion in sudden recognition of the value of his part in it. In the protection of your wholeness are all invited and made welcome. And you understand that your completion is God's, whose only need is to have you be complete, which you already are, but to become aware of it. For your completion makes you his in your awareness. And here it is that you experience yourself as you were created and as you are. Wow. Thank you so much for being here today. Let's sit with these teachings and invite the Holy Spirit to illuminate any areas where we have blocks or are uncertain or feel that we don't quite understand. To sit in stillness and to ask and know that you shall receive. And sometimes I have done lessons in the past where they didn't quite click, and then something happened in my life that illustrated it so beautifully that I was like, had that aha moment of, oh, this is what the Course was talking about. Thank you. So pay attention to that. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon.